You're listening to The Practicing Law Librarian. This limited series is part of PLI's Ever Current podcast, where we bring you insights and updates from legal thought leaders. Find additional episodes at pli.edu or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Welcome to the Practicing Law Librarian podcast, presented by PLI's Legal Information Services Group. This podcast brings you conversations with and for the law librarian community. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in legal information services for 34 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations Group. For this episode, I was delighted to have the chance to catch up with Andre Davison. Andre has had a varied and interesting career, including as a librarian at several major firms, a project analyst at a petroleum corporation, and a technical support lead at a legal vendor. This is after he began working in a law library while he was in high school. We spoke about his relationship partner's point of view and his interaction to connection mantra, as well as other pearls of wisdom he's picked up throughout his career. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Andre, really nice to see you today. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. It's taken a little while for us to get together, but I'm just delighted to see you and to be talking to you today. So thank you once again for coming.
Thank you, Karen. It's an honor to be a guest on this podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. So tell me about your new job.
I started almost a month ago as the director of the Robert W. Hainsworth Law Library in Harris County. And it's a new kind of change in career for me, not so much as a law librarian, but changing the type of law library. The Harris County Robert W. Hainsworth Law Library is a public law library, and we serve the constituents of Harris County, and 90% of our patrons are pro se self-represented litigants, and then the other 10% are solo attorneys.
Very cool. I'm going to back up just a little bit and talk about how we met. I don't actually know the exact occasion on which we met. I mean, I've been aware of you for a long time in the law librarian world. You've done various presentations and lots of PLLIP words and speeches and presentations, and so I've been aware of you for a long time. But I think we maybe formally met a year ago in Denver for the first annual... I'm not going to say it right. I want to say BLL, but now it's something different. Now it's the Black Caucus,
Well,
right?
It was previously the Black Caucus. It was the Black Law Librarians SIS, and it was our diversity reception for social justice is where we met. But I can even predate that. I met you virtually when you were at Niley. While I was at Blank Rome. We were customers of Niley, and I worked with the team. We've maintained our relationship, and I did just want to recognize PLI for partnering with Bliss and on that reception. And I worked with Katie McDavid and Sharon Crane. So really appreciate. I've had a long-standing relationship with PLI, even in my firm days, working with Haley Halverson as well in my previous firm. So
Thank you. Thank you. We're delighted to be associated with you as well. No, we were thrilled to sponsor that first meeting and I hope that we can do that again. Never up to me, though. So your background is not sort of straight through undergrad and library school and then to a firm. You came at things from a different way, but you've been interested in libraries since you were very young, if I remember. If you could tell me about your path.
So I started working at a law library when I was 16 years old. And I went to, I believe this was the first kind of high school in the U.S., the high school. Then it was called the High School for Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice. Now it's called the High School for Law and Justice. But I went to that high school and had the intention after finishing high school, going to college, and then going to law school. Well, the summer before my senior year of high school, I got the opportunity to work in a law library, which I had no idea what a law library was, but I got to work at a firm. It was then called Liddell, Sapp, Sibley, Hill, and Laboon. It's now called Lock, Lord, and Bissell. but I got the opportunity to work there, and I worked there my entire senior year of high school. And then when I graduated from high school, they decided to keep me on. So I worked there through college as well. So that was my introduction to law librarianship.
And where's the school?
I've lived in Houston all my life. So I went to this high school in Houston, now the High School for Law and Justice. And then I did my undergrad at the University of Houston. Go Cougs.
Okay. Okay. And then after that, so you're done with college and you've had 5 years at what's now Lockwood and Bissell.
Right. So I went through college and I actually worked there after college. So I spent the first 10 years of my career at Liddell Sapp, and then it had many iterations of names after that. But doing that, kind of figuring out what I exactly wanted to do. And during that time while working there, I kind of realized probably didn't want to go to law school just because working in big law and seeing the demand of associates in law. And at that time, I had a son when I was 21. And so being able to have that work-home life balance, just kind of being a lawyer didn't necessarily seem like the option for me at the time, but I really enjoyed working in the law library. I enjoyed research. That was the time where the internet had become popular in society. And so I enjoyed research. I enjoyed technology and learning new things as well, and computers and things like that. So the more I worked at the law library, the more I learned, and I had great mentors at the time. I learned librarianship could be an option for me. So after leaving what's now Lock Lord, I went on to work at Mayor Brown, which is a law firm based in Chicago, but I worked in the Houston office and worked there as a library assistant as well. Again, it was a bigger firm and a national firm, so learning new things. And then I went and left there and went to a firm, Howry, which was a big IP firm based in DC. And as a library assistant, still trying to figure out the path to be a law librarian, like learning I needed to go back to library school, having to pay for that as well. So figuring that out. And then while at Howry would later on close its doors, but about 6 months before that, I actually got laid off from Howry before they closed their doors, which was really a blessing in disguise because I was able to get a very lengthy severance package, which allowed me the opportunity to go back to grad school. And so I enrolled in grad school at the University of North Texas to start working on my MLS. But at the same time, I had got really interested in technology. So I had, at that time, 15 years of experience working in a law library as a law library assistant.
Right.
So I decided UNT has a couple of different tracks. They have a law librarianship track, but I figured since I had all this experience, I focused my major on information science because I was really into the technical aspect of law librarianship and finding and retrieving information. And so while doing that, while in school, I got a job at Thomson Reuters, and I worked not in their legal division, but their governance, risk, and compliance division. And so I worked with accounting.
Risk managers.
Right. Risk management.
At the firms?
Right. And on the financial and accounting side, because our clients used our software. It was the Edgar filing software to file their compliance documents. So I had law firm customers that I worked with, and I was working in technical support at the time when I started with them, but I also had huge corporations, corporate clients, and I worked a lot with the controllers and the CFOs at times. I was still in school, and I was able to get promoted to a customer success manager. So I was customer facing, and that's why when I talk about companies I work with, I love to use the term relationship partner, because I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and I think we work together to obtain mutually beneficial outcomes for the relationship. So I worked there, and then they asked me to come back and manage the technical support team. And so did that for almost 3 years, and then still working on my master's degree. And I decided to take an opportunity at a oil and gas company as an IT consultant. And I was doing a lot of work in knowledge management, which is where I kind of cut my teeth in KM.
Right.
And so still doing that while in school with every intention to, once the right opportunity came up, I would go back to the legal law librarian community. And so I finished my MLS in 2014, and the opportunity to go to Blank Rome as the electronic services librarian presented itself, and I started there in September 2015. And a reintroduction to the law library community. A lot had changed since I had left in 2010, and I really got the opportunity to grow while at Blank Rome and got to do interesting things. And I left Blank Rome actually in
2021. Okay,
yeah,
so you were there
during the pandemic.
Let me just stop. Right. So let me just stop you. When you were at Howry and Simon, did you know Joan Marshman?
Yes.
She was library.
Joan was the director at Howry when I was there. Yes.
In D.C.
Yes.
Yeah, because I've got history with these firms too. You probably know I was with Matthew Bender and LexisNexis for all those years, from 89 to 2014. Okay. So I was in D.C. for 7 years, and I had Howry and Simon. Have you ever seen The Pelican Brief?
Yes.
It was a movie with Julia Roberts. And when I tell people what I did selling law books, I say, well, you watch those lawyer TV shows, those lawyer movies, they've got all those huge shelves of books. I sold those. But in The Pelican Brief, when Julia Roberts goes to the law firm to try to find out what happened to this person, do you remember? It was split. You'd go from the big lobby of this building, 1275 Pennsylvania Avenue, go up one flight of escalator, and then there was another lobby, and then you'd go up another flight of escalators. Anyway, my husband and I went to this movie, and I'm like, that's Howry and Simon. That's Howry and Simon. Because you recognize something on the screen. He was like, okay. But then I moved to New Jersey in 96, so it was long ago that I had them. But then up in New York, I had Mayor Brown, and a lot of these other firms. I had Orrick as a client, and Locklord and Bissell. That was years ago when I was in D.C. So all these names, these are great old names. So so you're at Blank Rome, and but when you were with Thompson, you didn't have to go up to Egan. You were able to stay in Houston and continue your master's.
Right, we were a Houston-based company, so we were based in Houston. And the funny thing is, I got the chance to visit Egan last year. I was a part of the Thomson Reuters Advisory Board, so I finally got a chance to visit Egan, the main office and the print facility, and see how the sausage was made. So it was really interesting to see that.
And for Blank Rome, you never had to go to Philly to interview or anything?
I did. I used to take an annual trip to Philadelphia, and I would go to all of our East Coast offices. So either I would fly into D.C. and then take the train to Philadelphia and then to New York, or do the opposite, fly into New York and take the train to Philadelphia and D.C. So Philadelphia is a great city. I actually got a chance to visit it after AALL in Boston and see some of my old colleagues this year. So
that's right. I do know that you stopped there. No, and these were wonderful librarians. I mean, at Mayor Brown, Karen Provo was there, and at Blank Rome, Mary Newman was there.
Mary.
These are giants in the field. So 2021, then you went to Orrick.
Right.
And tell me about that. That was a slightly different.
Right. I went there as the research and operations implementation manager. So initially, I was coming in for a project and working with Denise Fagg and the team, and it was a good opportunity. And Orrick is really known for innovation, and so I got a chance to work with their innovation team, and I learned a lot while I was there. And so it was great, but I felt like it was time in my career to kind of progress to the next level, and the director of the Harris County Robert W. Hainsworth Law Library role opened up. I tell people that Houston is my home, and I'm gonna probably live in Houston. It would take an incredible opportunity for me to move because my family And so when this role opened up, and it was an opportunity to not only serve my community in Houston, but to be able to help people who don't necessarily have the resources to hire an attorney, and also help the legal community in providing access to justice, and partner with the legal community. I couldn't pass up this opportunity. So it's really exciting to be at the Hainsworth Law Library. And just for information for those listening, the Harris County Robert W. Hainsworth Law Library is a public library that serves the legal information needs of self-represented litigants, legal professionals, the judiciary, county, and other government officials. So that's our mission. And when I decided to come there, I decided to focus my service and to align with our mission using 4 tenets. It's information, of course, because we want to be able to provide access to legal information and educate our attorneys. We provide free CLEs to attorneys in the area. I wanted to focus on inspiration, and that's service with empathy and enthusiasm, because again, we're serving underrepresented communities who don't have access to the legal information they need, to do it with innovation, and that's being adaptable and collaborative within my team, which I work with the team at Harris County. They've been recognized within AALL for a lot of their innovative processes and offerings to our patrons, and do so with impact. And I really like to measure the quantitative analysis, but also qualitative analysis too. I believe those hand in hand give you a feedback that you can take action, and being able to provide impact and provide value to our patrons. So that was kind of the 4 things that I wanted to build on in supporting our mission statement when I came to the Hainsworth Law Library.
No, it's wonderful. With Matthew Bender, I used to call on county law libraries. And so I would always ask, I would say, do you serve the public? And some didn't. I would say, you serve the bar? And they would say, yes. I'd say, you serve the bench? And usually, yes. Right. But now things are so different. Justice access is so critical. I don't know if Becky Katz, she was one of our earlier guests, and she founded something called Justice Access. So in Washington, D.C., yes. You know about this, you're nodding. In Washington, D.C., for people who, can't get legal aid, they're working, but can't certainly afford a private attorney. It's a free online law library staffed by law librarians, reference librarians. Right. So the whole access to justice movement is just tremendous, and you're a big part of that. I'm going to ask you about library tools that you've created that are used by patrons, and they may be from your days at firms, they may be from your time at Thomson Reuters, but talk to me about some library tools that you're really happy that you've created and how they're used.
Sure thing. One tool that I'm extremely proud of, and it really opened up a lot of opportunities for me, is in 2019, ironically in DC, where AALL conference was held. I participated in the innovation tournament, and I was actually the audience choice winner for my idea. It was called Seamless Access to Secondary Sources. And what we did is I worked with some of our relationship partners to use single sign-on authentication to reduce friction and access to at the time, I mainly focused on secondary sources, because in most of the bigger research databases, primary law wasn't chargeable. It was more so the secondary sources. And this was pre-pandemic. Most attorneys were used to accessing their books in the law library.
Right.
But after the recession in the late 2000s, you saw a lot of law libraries, whether it be private firm, corporate, academic, they started to reduce their print footprint. And in the firm world, we had attorneys who were used to accessing books, and they never really charged clients for reading books. And so What we work to create is to give them that single sign-on access so they didn't have to worry about entering a password or remembering their password. They didn't have to worry about how to navigate to those publications because a lot of times we created e-libraries, non-billable zones. The single sign-on authentication would allow them to bypass authentication, a client number, and take them directly to the publication they need. And we sorted them out by practice group and most popular. So that was the tool I'm probably most proud of because it gave me the opportunity to reach out and collaborate with librarians all over the country to kind of talk through that process and help them implement it in their law library. So that was a really cool tool. And I have to give a shout out to one of my mentors, Greg Lambert. He it's the saying he has about helping people find the right information at the right time. And
Right.
I really could appreciate that when I was developing this project is because it brought information to the people and they didn't have to go looking for it. And I like to still use that same mantra, even though I'm in a different law library, I'm in a public law library, I want to help people find the right information at the right time as well. So yeah, that's one tool I'm really proud of, and I was able to share that with the larger law library community.
I like it. Seamless access to secondary sources. Single sign-on. Yeah, that's what everybody wants. I just love that because primary sources important, but available.
Right.
Widely available, whereas secondary sources are often behind a paywall because they're proprietary, because they're written by experts, because they're written by people that could write the book and know what to do. And reading those resources and using those resources can provide guidance. And so we're blessed to be in that end of the business. We really like that. And it was so kind of you to say those nice things about PLI material. So I wanted to acknowledge that and thank you for that. Okay, so you've been in law library work since you were in high school.
Yes.
So what are some of the most important learnings over those years that you would share with your fellow law librarians?
Right. I've learned so much, and in preparation to be on this podcast, of course, I listen to others' podcasts and definitely people who I admire in the industry. So far, I think I've listened to Cornell Winston, who's one of my mentors, as well as Harris Crooks, a friend and mentor as well, and Alyssa. And one of the things she said, it kind of stood out to me where she said she learned a lot from people. She talked about, I guess, going to the conferences and you learn a lot from people. And my professional and personal mantra is to try to go from interaction to connection. So in my relationships, I meet somebody and I try to move that interaction to being able to connect with them. And it was this year at the conference in Boston. I set a goal to meet 100 people and not only meet, but connect with them. So I would meet people, I would take a picture of their badge and then wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning during the conference and send them a note on LinkedIn. Just great meeting you at the GLL breakfast and look for it, and using that tool LinkedIn to connect with them and then try to have follow up and build relationships. And I think it's the same with our patrons as well, is that I try to move them from interacting with tools or resources to creating connection. I think they call it making it sticky, having it stick with them. And that's one of the great things about PLI is because people were aware of the course handbooks that you put out as well as the CLE material. And so when it came time and we transitioned to PLI Plus, that making that connection was, well, you remember this handbook? It's now electronically available. You can access it from anywhere. Right. And they would remember that name and or the particular author. And so, or you remember this CLE you took and you need the handbook from that. You can find it on PLI Plus. So whether I'm doing that with information resources or in personal relationships, I try to move from interaction to connection. So that's one thing that's really kind of helped me in my career as well as a law librarian. A couple of more things. 2017, the AALL conference was in Austin, and it was actually my first AALL conference. The keynote speaker was Brian Stevenson,
Yes,
who's went
yes.
on to,
Just
do
Mercy.
the movie Just Mercy, read the book, and at that time, he did the movie off the book. He was assigned the book, but he gave a keynote speech where he encouraged people to get proximate, stay hopeful, change the narrative, and be willing to do uncomfortable things. And that really
Right.
kind of stuck with me as I was just getting back into law libraries, but it really encouraged me to get involved to make a difference in my community. So whether that was doing programming internally at my firm, which I was fortunate enough for some of the work that I did. I won my firm's diversity award while at Blank Rome, or
Right.
getting more involved in AALL as well, and getting involved in leadership at the chapter level. I was the Houston Area Law Library's president, and it just
Right.
encouraged me to get more involved and try to make a difference in all of my communities, whether it be professional or personal. So that was really a really important lesson I learned. And then in 2019, I attended the Management Institute for AALL, and this really played a key role in leadership for me. And even though it's a management institute, I think it's a very important leadership principle as well as management principle. The instructor gave a great definition of empowerment, which I still use this to this day. It says empowerment is a conscious delegation of responsibility, authority, and accountability within a set of defined constraints. And so that really stuck with me in the way as I did kind of move up and get promoted and started to manage people. That definition stuck with me, and how can I empower others to using that definition to be the best version of themselves, and bring their authentic selves to work. And because when you bring your authentic self to your job, you can really provide excellent work product and customer service because you're being who you are. And so, and then lastly, this is one that I learned this past summer at the AALL conference, and it's really simple, but it's really powerful that I think law librarians should take with them in their daily job. We hosted a new attendees, first time attendees to AALL,
Right.
and we had a session to just try to give them advice. And they provided three simple pieces of advice to the new attendees as it relates to the conference, and I think we can apply it to our daily jobs. They said, learn as much as you can, meet people, and have fun. And I think as law librarians, we're lifelong learners, and so I just encourage the community to learn as much as you can while you do your job. Meet as many people you can, because like Alyssa stated, I learn a lot from people who I collaborate with and meet, and then have fun doing it.
Right. Because we're a fun group.
Yes.
What do you wish you had known when you began working in a law library when you were in high school? Or what do you wish you had known when you took your first full-time job as a law librarian?
Right. I think that a good friend had a saying, don't ambush your ambition. And I think a lot of times the perception of law librarians that we're timid and quiet, just those perceptions that are unfairly assigned to us. But we experience imposter syndrome sometimes. And I've learned that you have to take risk in your career and do things. Don't be afraid to take on challenges. And then it's okay to make mistakes. That's what I would
Right.
tell myself. I saw a quote that said, failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of success. So that's what I would tell myself at the beginning of my career, because I think I kind of struggled with that along the way. But the more mentors I had and the more people I met who just were encouraging. And I think law librarianship is fun, and we're such a collegial profession as well that we're willing to help each other and encourage each other. And just instill confidence in one another. That's what I would have told myself at the beginning of my career, that it's okay to try things and not be successful at it, or it's okay to make mistakes, but you learn and you grow from that. So
Really, I've been making notes here. I'm really struck by a couple of things. Interaction to connection. I mean, because we have interactions every day, all the time. I mean, fewer when we were at home, but during the pandemic, but interactions all the time, but moving them to connection. I think that's brilliant. I've made a note on that. And also your phrase, relationship partners. That's exactly right.
Yes.
When those of us that have been in the industry for a while, been in the profession for a while, we have friends at the vendors, we have friends at the libraries, we have friends at the courts, because we're a close, trusting group and we rely on each other. And of course, PLI, we're a secondary source provider. So the library tools that we spoke of, a couple of those, what did your groups or your users, could be librarians, could be patrons, could be members of the public, bar, bench, what have they found most useful?
Right. I think the user experience is what they appreciated the most, trying to improve user experience by making something easily accessible, or even taking the time. I remember when I was at Blank Rome, we were doing an intranet redesign, and we used what they called personas. So what it would do was, if you were a securities attorney, when you went to your practice page, you would only see things that were related to a security attorney. So what we did at the time is we organized the resources where, hey, these are your top resources that you would see and they would recognize it. We had a library page where we had a list of all of our resources, but we organized it in these categories. So if they needed no material, then we would provide access to these practical materials. That, or if they need treatises, we would provide those most used treatises that they were used to seeing. So just trying to provide a better experience for the user when they needed to get to the information that they needed, because that's what we provide, legal information, and always being willing to listen and think of practical use cases, because I think that's really how you relate, especially in the firm world, and even now so on the public facing side, that you have to have practical information that they are you're able to provide for them, and being able to provide scenarios where, hey, you can use this material when you need XYZ, or if you're looking for an exemplar, we have this resource that'll help you find exemplars really easy. So just being really practical, providing practical use cases and providing an excellent user experience, I think that helps create that connection that we were talking about
Right.
earlier. And so I think from that standpoint, and even internally working within teams, being able to provide connection to, it goes back to that connection. I can remember an example during the pandemic where we were all at home and not being in the office. And with me, I was always remote from my team because the majority of my team was based on the East Coast and I was in Houston.
Right.
And so we had to
Right.
find ways to create connection. And so using Microsoft Teams just to create photos where people could post photos of fun things they did. So very simple and practical, but it worked. It helped create that connection and create camaraderie and build culture. I'm a real proponent of creating a positive culture where people can be themselves and be collaborative to do our jobs well. I think, having that type of environment encourages people to be the best them that they can be.
And that goes back to what you were saying about empowerment, conscious decisions. I wasn't able to capture the whole thing, but conscious decisions to make certain things happen. Right. Do you mind saying it again?
Empowerment is a conscious delegation of responsibility, authority, and accountability within a set of defined constraints.
Thank you. But that covers what you were just saying about bringing the best that we can to work and creating community and creating connections and helping people, leading people maybe to be the best they can at work and at the work that they do. So I've asked various questions that you were prepared for. Is there anything else that you would like to share that I've not touched on or not thought to ask about?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that as I continue to grow in my career and in my new role, I couldn't be where I am without the support of my family. So my wife, Felicia, my son, Nigel, and my daughter, Fallon, they're my biggest supporters. And so just very grateful for them and my entire family. When I got the job at Harris County, they threw me a surprise party that I had no idea out, and a lot of family and friends came out to just celebrate me, and it just made me realize that I am where I am because of the people who have invested in me, whether it be my family, whether it be mentors in the law library community, relationship partners. I learn and I glean from everyone and inspired and motivated by people I meet along the way. So I just wanted to mention that.
Wonderful. I'm glad that you did. Yeah, we don't acknowledge those factors and those loved ones nearly often enough. I'm always intrigued that you describe yourself as a technologist.
Yes.
I remember when I was laid off at Lexis, our division was eliminated in 2014, and so then I was able to go and use the MLS degree that I'd gotten in 2011. So I became a law librarian in 2015. But they gave us outplacement services, and the counselor that they gave me was just convinced that I should call myself an informationist. And I really didn't care for it, and I pushed back, and I didn't put it on my resume. But I just thought it was the oddest term. She was like, "Oh yeah, that's what you guys are. I don't like informationists nearly as much as I like technologists."
Right.
And that's what you have on your LinkedIn profile, and that's what you've used probably in other places too.
It's funny. I used to use the term cybrarian as well, which I just thought it was fun, a fun way to describe myself. But I think in our institutions, whether we work in a different type of law library or whether we work at one of our relationships partners, we're all using technology to facilitate and push information or content to people. And there are a lot of creative ways to do so. I'm really excited about projects here at the Harris County Hainsworth Law Library where we get to really do some interesting things with technology to be able to bring content and information and access to justice and to really help our community. So I was always curious about technology, whether it be taking a computer apart, putting it together, or using low code to create solutions. So I'm always interested, and now with the explosion of generative AI, to be able to see how you can take this new technology and again find a practical use case to test and experiment with to see if it could be beneficial to your stakeholders. So
Yeah, we think it's going to be enormous for access to justice.
Yes.
Enormously helpful, and that's a wonderful thing. Can I ask you what you're reading, either for work or for pleasure?
So
anything you've been...
Definitely. So when I try to read, and I try to read with three intentions in mind, is for education, for inspiration, and for application. So for education right now, the director emerita and operations manager here at the Hainsworth Law Library and a longtime mentor of mine, Marianne Sears, when I started, she gave me a book called Love as a Business Strategy. And so it's just started reading it, but how we can not think of strategies in terms of profits or performance, but using love as a business strategy. So that's the book I'm reading on the education piece. For application, my former director at ORIC, Denise Bagg, she told me about a really good book she was reading called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. And it's something I really wanted to read as moving into the director role and the increased responsibility. I need to be a great steward of my time and also being so involved in AALL as an executive board member and still being involved with different SIs and local chapter. Time management is really important.
Critical.
And it's the principle is that 4,000 weeks is the average time that I think about 80 years old that people live, and how you're going to use that time to the best of your ability. So that's what I'm reading for application. And then for inspiration, one of my church members, I don't know if you remember the story of James Byrd, who was brutally murdered by 3 white supremacists in Texas. But his daughter is one of my church members, and she wrote a book called Triumph Over Tragedy, A Story of Healing and Forgiveness by the daughter of James Byrd. And so she told me about the book, and it's really inspirational and to see how she overcame that tragedy. So that's what I'm reading for inspiration right now. And that's really helpful with the patrons we represent or we serve, not represent,
right.
The patrons we serve in our community. You have to really be empathetic in their situations because you're sort of the last resort they come to for help.
Well, these are 3 excellent titles. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining me today. But it's been such a pleasure, and it's such a long time coming, but I'm glad that we finally were able to connect, and just so appreciate your joining us today and sharing information and recommendations and accomplishments with me. And I'm just so impressed with what you do and what you've done and what you're going to do in your library. So thank you once again for joining me. PLI thanks you.
Thank you, Karen. And it's just great to continue the partnership that I've had with PLI, and an honor to be on this podcast. I can't wait to listen to the rest of the podcast. I was listening to Elaine's podcast was the next one. And so it's really interesting to get other people's perspective, but it's truly a pleasure. And I thank you again for being patient as I kind of work through this transition. So I was happy. I think another just quick caveat, timing is everything. And so I'm glad we were able to do this today.
Absolutely. It was more than worth waiting for.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian, part of PLI's Ever Current podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.